Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to the 2022 Sustainable Protein Forum. We have a very interesting technical session designed to explore the global fermentation ecosystems that are present all around the world. And I think it's going to be a fascinating panel to give examples from public-private partnerships, startup ecosystems, startup companies that have come from, those types of high-risk ecosystems that are now at commercial scale. And so there may be things to learn about what to do and what not to do in terms of being successful technically and commercially. I am Phil Kerr. I'm the Chief Technology Officer of Prairie AquaTech, a startup in the United States in South Dakota who uses fermentation to valorize soybean meal for a number of nutritional applications, primarily aquatic, livestock, and some terrestrial and companion animal opportunities as well too. We're going to have to change the order of the speakers from the original schedule. In the true nature of our global community, one of our speakers is from Israel this morning, and it's a holiday in Israel, and so to try to be respectful to her time with her family, we're going to let Dr. Dorit Rozner go first. The rest of the schedule should be relatively straightforward. I will go second, not first. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Dorit Rozner. She's the Chief Technology Officer of the Kitchen Hub, which is the first food tech incubator in Israel that was established about 8 years ago by Strauss. Dorit has 15 years of experience in managing global R&D processes in teams in the fields of microencapsulation and drug delivery of functional foods. So it's a very interesting skill set that she brings to fermentation. Dietary supplements and pharmaceutical knowledge of these types of materials will be a strong suit of her and the teams that she has led in the past. Dorit brings extensive experience and ideas for innovation in technology and product development. And she's responsible for the due diligence process and for the technological support of these startups coming out of the hub. A very critical function, as you can imagine. These are very fragile stages in these organizations, and her experience is incredibly valuable in that standpoint. She has served as a director of market development in other organizations. Market development for technological solutions, and the head of R&D at LycoRed, for those that are familiar with LycoRed, as a food colorant and dietary supplement company. She specializes in microencapsulation technologies of functional ingredients and dietary supplements. Dorit holds a master's in environmental sciences and chemistry from the Hebrew University, and then she got her doctorate in organic chemistry at the Weizmann Institute. So has worked in some very prestigious settings as she has started down this path in her career. With that, we want to thank Dorit for working on a holiday, and we're looking forward to hearing about the Kitchen Hub. So we'll turn it over to Dorit at this time.
Hi, hello everybody. Thank you, Phil, for the introduction. Um, one more thing that should be mentioned here that I was doing a lot of in the field of microbiome, so many years of expertise in fermentation technologies, and thank you so much for having me here today. As mentioned, I'm Chief Technology Scientist of the Kitchen Hub. It's the first food tech hub established in Israel in 2014. We are part of the Strauss Group. Strauss is the Israeli largest food company. It operates in 22 companies in countries. It's the number 5 coffee company globally, and we are number 1 in the fresh dips and spreads, hummus, if you know, in the world as a Sabra company. What is the kitchen does? So we see ourselves as a company builders. We invest in companies, we nurture them, and eventually we hope they will all commercialize. We are working in a collaboration with the Israeli government, with the Israeli innovation authorities. And in this program, every company received a budget of around $700,000 to start the company. It's a pre-seed and seed companies that are joining the kitchen for a period of 18 to 24 months, while 85% of the budget is being given by the government and 15% by Strauss for equity in those companies. One of the things that we are doing mostly in the last couple of years is venture creation model from the universities. So we are licensing IP from the universities in a subject that we think that can be interesting, or we were testing the market and the need for it. And we build the team inside the Kitchen Hub. Eventually, we invest in the seed round and we launch the startup. Um, in our kitchen, we are giving full support for those companies. If it's in the technology side, working with the startups on their R&D program, looking on their milestones, talking about regulation and building a IP strategy around it. In the biz dev, working with the startups to tell the story. So we have a lot of sessions on storytelling and how to build a deck presentation. Really depends on the CEO that is joining the hub, if it's the one that's more experienced. So he needs less work with us. And if there are people that are only starting in the beginning, if it's the scientists or CEOs, we are helping them and we're supporting them all the way. One of the important things that we see is the team. So we have our own HR that helps to recruit the right people for the right startups. Except of that, we have the Strauss support. Of course, all the expertise and the know-how that is known in the facilities, Strauss is helping those startups. If it's marketing-wise, if it's technology-wise, they are there for the companies. And our global network, we have some of our strategic partners like Givaudan, Danone, PepsiCo that work with the startups, help them to access the market and access to a capital. So if we are looking on what we did as investment in the last couple of years, so we were talking a lot about better industry and better food. So if it's companies around environmental effect and safety and quality, and if we're talking about health and the functionality of different ingredients, this is part of the portfolio inside the kitchen. To summarize it, more than 1,000 investment opportunities were evaluated inside the kitchen. From those evaluations, 23 portfolio companies are part of the Kitchen Hub. More than $200 million were invested in those portfolio companies. 9 of them were built inside the kitchen by the venture creation model, as I explained before, from the universities. 6 of those companies already have their own facilities, pilot facilities, and we are very proud of that we are able to support and bring work for people, more than 250 people already working in those startups, including PhDs. The government today supports in food tech incubators all around Israel. So the Kitchen Hub, as I mentioned, was the first one, but from then we have also in the north incubators and in the south of Israel, and they are all working in the field of food tech and agri. If we are looking on the amount of startups that were established in Israel, in small countries, so there are more than 300 startups in all kinds of fields. If it's in the health ingredients, if it's safety and quality and packaging, and also in the alternative protein, there is a big amount of companies that are growing. This segment is really growing, and we see it more and more. So when we are looking today on what should we invest and how does the future of food looks like, we have to answer one quick question: how we are going to feed all the people in the world by 2050? It's going to be around 10 billion people. And there are a lot of issues we need to address. One of them is the sustainability. When we are looking on the animal ag, it's responsible for 14.5% of the greenhouse gas emissions. If we're talking about the efficiency, so 75% of the agricultural land is used for raising and feeding livestock. Okay, and there is a very small example that I like to show all the time when I'm talking about it. So there is like, it takes 9 calories of food fed to a chicken to produce 1 calorie of meat. This is what we're talking about, less efficient process. And of course, the safety issue. There are a lot of problems of antibiotics. So we see a lot of antibiotic resistance, and we want to try to diminish those problems by the future of food. And to do that, we are looking into deep tech technologies. We are looking into the plant-based protein, of course, and we are looking on precision fermentation to produce some of those proteins and other functional ingredients. We are using synthetic biology to increase the yields in those precision fermentation technologies. And in the extraction and purification field, this is a really big bottleneck to increase the yields and to be able to extract the protein in a more efficient and cost-effective way. We have also the area of cell cultivation. As we all know, we have already 3 companies in this field, and the area of bioconversions like 3D printing is also growing. So those are the 3 main sectors that we invest today. Fermentation is an emerging and is a critical enablers platform for those new products. So we have the fermentation, we have the plant-based, and also the cultivated meat, as I mentioned. In Israel, what's going on now? So global alternative protein investment grew by 60% from 2020 to 2021. In the world, there are a number of cultivated companies. In Israel, there are 12 companies in this field. Also, we have seafood companies that were founded in 2021, so already 5 companies in this field. And Israel is number 2 in this area of plant-based and alternative protein. Those are the companies in Israel in those fields, and I try to put it on a table in order to be able to see how they are growing. So we see a lot of companies that are still in the seed and development, but already we see some companies that are already in the pilot scale and moving forward for commercialization. Some of those companies are part of the Kitchen Hub, like 4C and Wanda, that are producing cultivated meat. We have Mush Food and Imagine Dairy in the fermentation area, and in the plant-based we have Mila and other companies as well. So where do we find innovation in those fields? So absolutely, in every step of the value chain, we can find opportunities for innovation. In the area of the feedstock optimization, any source of biomass that can serve as a feedstock for fermentation-based protein production. We are looking for new strain development in order to increase the yield and to create more cost-effective processes. In the fermentation bioprocess design as well, we are looking for more continuous processes than the regular fermenters. We are looking on how to use or how to utilize the big data analysis and to work with AI equipment. We are looking on eventually on the bulk. What are we going to produce? So We have different functional ingredient, different protein like cowless milk, yes, proteins like casein and whey proteins that we are looking to do in fermentation processes as well. Commercial readiness, this is a real bottleneck today. So in the commercial scale, precision food fermentation is performed at large scale, okay, in order to achieve low cost operation. But what do we have today? So most of the capacities that are today are built 20 to 50 years ago, and they were originally for different APIs and for chemicals. So we have a limited scale for now, and there is also limited in the downstream processes that are very high in capex. Fermentation capacity exceeds the supply, and we need to figure out how to support more and more companies that are emerging in this field in the future in the scale up. Oh, sorry. Just to summarize a little bit the numbers, so to understand that today, in order to use precision fermentation to produce the next proteins, we have to increase the scale of those fermenters. And only above 500,000 liters will be in the area that will be low than $75 per kilo. And this is still very high compared to soy protein and other protein in the market, plant-based. Some of the example for companies in our kitchen in those fields. So we have mash foods that are producing mycelium, growing the mycelium in a solid fermentation process. And eventually they are using the mycelium for hybrid products. That means they are not giving up the taste of the meat, but they decided to reduce it. So today they are able to produce a 50-50% hamburgers and other food meat applications. And the taste is really super. They are working on different mushrooms and different strains in order to get different kind of texture and flavors. Another company in our hub is Imagine Dairy, that they are working on precision fermentation processes. And this is the area of the cowless milk. So today they are mostly producing the whey proteins, and they have a proprietary AI algorithm in order to increase the expression of those protein in the microbes. Another company is Amai Protein. It's also a precision fermentation company. They are designing sweet proteins for the food industry in order to reduce the amount, or even to reduce the amount of sugar and to have it like a digested protein. Aleph Farm is our first cultivated meat company that established in the kitchen in the venture creation. In this company, what we did, we approached the professor in the Technion University, and we told him, let's take this amazing technology of cell cultivation and move it to food. And by that, Aleph Farm today is creating meat cuts from bovine cells. With time, we added few more companies in this area of cultivated, and we have Wonder Fish. This is also a technology that we license from Taft University in Boston, and it's a unique process how to create the tuna fish from cell cultivation technology. Another technology in this field is Bio4C. It's a technology that we brought from another university in Israel, Tel Aviv University. And this is a very unique process how to create seafood platform. The first product that they are producing is eels, and it's all natural composition. And the main innovation in this company is that they are able to produce those cuts with no scaffolding. We are in the heart of the ecosystem in Israel since 2012. We are promoting the Israeli food tech in global event, hosting delegation. It's really a community already in Israel. Also, the different hubs are doing the same with the GFI that is working very strong in Israel. And the last meeting was the Food Tech IL that was done by Strauss and the Kitchen Hub in 2019. More than 1,000 guests attended this event. And we are very happy and thrilled to see those people again in November. So you are all welcome, of course. In the 7th of November, we will have again our FUTEC IL. There are already more than 800 participants that are going to join this session. Thank you, and let's do good by doing food.
Thank you, Dorit. Great overview to a very, very dynamic innovation landscape. I think it's exciting to really see what Israel as a country has been able to achieve over the last decade in a number of areas, and certainly what you're doing here is a shining example of that. Got a question for you about how Kitchen Hub can help small companies that maybe can't afford the technical talent for machine learning or AI. Are there ways in which you can share these resources across a network of companies that would give companies access to this, but not have to pay for full-time equivalents?
Well, it's a wonderful question, Phil, because we see it a lot. It's a big bottleneck for those companies to bring in those companies in from the beginning, those experts. One of the things that we have in the kitchen, we have a forum, a technology forum, that we are meeting once a month to discuss all the challenges that those companies are facing, and we share knowledge. We share knowledge that it's not a proprietary, but we can help one another. And there is also a list of experts that work with the Kitchen Hub, and they support those startups as it's not a full time job, but they definitely are there for their need and for their help.
How about for patent attorneys?
Of what? Patent attorneys? Oh, this is a major issue, and every company that leaves the Kitchen Hub after 24 months, we oblige them to be already with a provisional. And how we do it, we work with them on their patent strategy. I sit with those companies every week to see the results and to see what can be patented. We have like a battery of different IP or patent attorneys that are working with us. Every company will choose their patent attorney. It's chemistry. You have to find the patent attorney that you like to work with. And they will support the companies during the years that they are in the incubator, and most of them continue with them also afterward.
I want one question philosophically for the fermentation industry. I know we see this in my own company, but as these technologies for precision fermentation of specific proteins, for example, whether it's, let's just take casein or whey for a specific example, how can the fermentation industry, the startup fermentation industry, develop a collaborative working relationship with the existing dairy infrastructure so we don't have to end up duplicating all this stainless steel and concrete, and yet find a way to make this transition to a more sustainable, more maybe eventually more cost effective? Do you find receptiveness in the dairy industry or the meat industry to some of the things that you're doing, or is that still a steep hill to climb?
Well, I think it's starting. Not all companies know how is it to work with a startup. We need to teach them, and it takes time for a big organization to understand the win-win situation here. Uh, Large companies today are looking into the field of fermentation. They are not planning already to build their own facilities. Maybe some of them are. Uh, but the big advantage in creating those collaboration is that big organization will start to learn these technologies, and the startups need the support of those companies to understand what they need in order to support big organizations. If it's if they need to work in a quality assurance, in specific quality assurance for those companies, or they need to understand how to work in the industry. Not all the industry has pilot facilities, so when they are starting to work with such a huge organization, they will tell them, okay, I need you to supply me about 25 kg in order to start developing, and this is an issue. So today, what we see in Israel emerging is small pilot facilities. Some of them are creating their own, and some of them they are already starting to build like pilot area, like a WeWork of about 80 to 150 kg fermenters in the beginning, because all the startups are really fresh. So there is no need to jump or already now to big facilities, but to start with the pilot scale, it's something that we see. Um, and we see a lot of collaboration with the huge companies, with the startups. Definitely we see it. And it's a process. It's definitely a process.
Yeah, fascinating. Somehow the domino will tumble, right? The
Yeah.
question is how do you get enough momentum that you de-risk it from a economic standpoint and a technology standpoint. So it'll be fascinating to see what happens here over the next several years. Very
Yeah,
good.
and I think that the regulation also has a very important part of it, because it's only all the time the question, the chicken or the egg, because in one area the regulation is need to push forward those startups in order that they will be able to build their facilities, but in another, when you look on the other way, the regulation still learns these new processes. A lot of the ingredients are in the novel food area, so they are looking for transparency for the startups, and the startups need to push forward for plant building. So it's a combination of both, I guess.
Yep. Yep. One other question then for to Mehmet. What's the environment in Israel in terms of regulatory aspects? Sorry, I'm battling with a cold here. For nature identical proteins.
So in Israel, they are looking on the U.S. regulation. They are working closely, but they are very similar to what's going on in the EFSA in Europe. So eventually those new proteins will be novel food, and novel food is still not approved in Israel as a process. The regulation is still studied it. Um, there is a group already of several companies with the regulator that are working together in the last year in order to facilitate the improvement for cultivated meat. Two companies, and also three companies in the area of new fermentation processes for proteins. So we are still struggling. It's not that easy.
Yeah, and this is where the dairy industry and the meat industry is. You are the barbarians at the gate. So again, finding
The
those.
startup, I hope you will not be the first one.
Yeah, finding those areas where it is a win-win will be, I think, tantamount to success.
Mm-hmm.
All right, good. Mehmet, any comments,
No,
questions from you?
good. Thank you. just like to thank Dorit for her wonderful presentation, and especially taking this presentation on a holiday and a new year in Israel. So wishing Dorit and the whole
It's the best way to start a new year.
Yes. Happy New Year to you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we'll be going to Dr. Phil Kerr. Dr. Kerr will be talking about the overview of the fermentation and the bioengineering technologies in the growing agricultural landscape. So it's my pleasure, really honored to present Dr. Phil Kerr to you. Phil is the Chief Technology Officer of Prairie AquaTech, and Prairie AquaTech is a U.S. startup that discovers, develops, and commercializes value-added nutrition solutions for global aquaculture, including those produced using unique supply chains within the northern plains that deploy identity-preserved high-protein soybeans, producing using leading methods for oilseed production for crop sustainability. Prior to joining Prairie AquaTech in July 2019, Phil was the Senior Director of Grain and Food Science Research and Development of indigo agriculture, where he led multiple initiatives to assess the nutritional and functional characterization of grains and oilseeds produced using regenerative agricultural practices, including the use of unique endophytic microorganisms as crop quality enhancing production inputs. Prior to joining indigo agriculture, Phil served in multiple leadership roles with Viewpoint Agricultural Products, Soleil LLC, and Viewpoint Nutrition and Health. Phil's experience ranges from creating new ingredients with enhanced holistic quality attributes to the formation and management of strategic private-public relationships that enabled them and brought them to global commercial status. Included in his experiences during his tenure at DuPont, Soleil, Phil collaborated in the development of novel identity-preserved grain and oilseed supply chains that utilize crops whose quality traits have been enhanced through the use of both modern biotechnology and conventional breeding techniques. Phil serves as the Vice President of Protein Highway Initiative, a network for facilitating cross-border collaboration for plant protein-based innovation and commercialization from the U.S. Midwest, Northern Plains, and the Canadian Prairie provinces. And Phil is an active member of IFT, AOCS, and also Phil serves as the president of its governing board, the executive committee. And it's my pleasure again to introduce you, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, Mehmet. I've got to give a warning. This whole technical session is about the positive interaction of humans and microbes, and I have had a negative interaction with a microbe over the weekend, so I've come down with a chest cold. So hopefully my voice will not give out, but I may have to cough or may have to mute occasionally to keep my voice. So bear with me. It's a tremendous pleasure to be able to speak to you today on Prairie AquaTech. It's an example of public-private partnerships and being able to take innovative technology out of an academic environment and try to take it to commercial scale. And so we're going to tell that story as part of the journey that we've been on for about a decade. Our vision is shown on this particular slide, and that is to inspire the world to use better plant-based ingredients for a better life. And we'll show what we mean by that in the coming slides. We're starting with using fermentation of soy protein for large aquaculture feed and pet food markets. We are also now looking from a initial exploratory standpoint into human food applications. And so we're excited about the way that the technology platforms like this may have broad applicability in a number of settings. So this part of the technical session is the use of fermentation for valorization of major agricultural raw materials. And we'll see why we think that is such a challenge and also such an opportunity. We have to get this right, and we have to get it right pretty quickly. So we see this, by 2050, the world's population will reach 9.1 billion. I actually don't believe that. I think it's going to be faster than that, because we're going to hit probably 8 billion by the end of this year. And so that gives you almost 17 years to add that next billion. And typically we add another billion about every 11 or 12 years. And so the challenge is going to be how do we sustain that larger population, but with also as dietary patterns change, as urban environments and food consumption patterns change, that's equally important to population growth. And so the challenge is laying out in front of all of us, and we've got to rise to that challenge very, very quickly, as you'll see. This was always kind of an eye-opener for me as I started to look at this more deeply. We're actually at a point now where we farm more fish than beef. And that's a little bit of a surprise to a lot of people. You can see, particularly on the left and the right, that farm fishing is on a very rapid growth trajectory. We're far surpassing the wild catch at this moment. And as we said, we're now fishing more than we are in raising beef. Eventually, we'll surpass probably swine and poultry, but beef is the first milestone there. So, one of the real challenges, however, with aquaculture is that the primary protein ingredients that are used for these formulated feeds typically actually come from fish, mined fish. So fish meal, squid meal, as an example of two major broad categories, are very, very important, and they have been progressively declining over the last 20-25 years, as you can see from this particular graph. So while aquaculture production has been increasing dramatically, the supply of fish meal as a primary protein ingredient is declining pretty substantially, and this is an untenable graph. We cannot sustain this going forward. And so the challenge is we have to find alternative sources of protein for these particular aquaculture applications. And those fundamentally will be best served if those come from plants. That raises opportunities, but it also has a number of challenges. The context of this is, I think, well illustrated by a model that's now coming out of the Stockholm Institute called Planetary Boundaries. And the image that you see here is just published earlier this year. And it has identified a number of risk factors that can influence the quality of life on the planet. Two of the ones that are largest and of relevance to this particular topic today are shown in the bottom. And so these are biogeochemical flows. And what that really means is that nitrogen and phosphorus utilization are incredibly inefficient. And it's a risk in terms of the way global ag is behaving today. Other factors are very important. Novel entities at the top, plastics, as we know, this has just been quantified, and it is a very significant risk as well too. But the foundation for how we go manufacture our food is a real problem, and we have to address it as we try to prepare the primary protein ingredients for aquaculture production. How we go about doing that is got a number of other implications. The ongoing global challenges for supplying protein to the aquaculture industry have two different perspectives. Coming from the animal perspective, you're now seeing on a massive scale, particularly with very large industrial scale vessels from China coming in and essentially mining squid from almost the entire perimeter of South America. Different times, different seasons. They'll just migrate around the continent, and they are aggressively harvesting squid for use in a number of industries, including the production of squid meal for aquaculture. So the inset picture that you can see there is literally what what these fleets look like. They sit out on past the international waters, and they just are harvesting squid at alarming rates. There's an interesting comparison, and that is what happened in the fish meal industry, particularly in Peru. And so these are smaller vessels, as you can see. These smaller white dots are more artisanal scale businesses. But it's ironic that the predation in the anchovy and menhaden population and the fisheries are such that those fishing vessels can only be out fishing about half of the year. Any more than that, and they run the risk of very significant predation. So this is going to be happening on an even greater scale with squid meal. And we've already shown that this is a major issue with fish meal. It's going to be happening with squid meal as well. And then on the right side, if you approach it from, well, what about plant protein? The way in which we're producing soybeans, particularly in South America, also has major issues. And this is an atmospheric image of the number of wildfires in 2019, record number of fires in both the Brazilian rainforest and in the Brazilian prairies. And so you can see throughout the last several years, there have just been a progressive increase in the number of fires. These fires are typically set so that you can clear land, and then you can come in and plant soybeans after the land is cleared. But because of the nature of these ecosystems, much of the carbon is actually above ground. And as soon as you take out the canopies, you put at risk the long-term survivability soybean production in South America. So these are two issues, one coming from the animal side, one coming from the plant side, and we've got to have better solutions. So as you look at what might be protein sources to upscale and to valorize, you have a number of choices. Soy, pea, wheat, these are all choices on a relatively large scale. Pea is an emerging entrant, but it is still very, very modest in relation to soy. And it's for that reason we have chosen to focus our efforts on the valorization of soy protein. Soybeans are a bit of a unique crop. They have two essentially primary products. One is meal, one is oil. Both are very important, and they have to be managed, together. So the balancing of how these important end products coming from this crop is very, very important in these types of settings. So if we're going to deal with these issues, the global challenge that we have for food and environmental security is that we have got to stop feeding such a high percentage of soybean meal and directly to animals, and we have to find ways to feed them more directly to humans. And that's easy to say, but very, very hard to do. So that transition from going from 97.3 to a completely different balance point is coming in the face of a very significant increase in animal protein. So how are we gonna manage that? There's a number of technologies that you'll hear about today that are very relevant, and so it's all part of the conversation that we'll have throughout the technical session here today. Aquaculture, we believe, plays a very important role because it is fast and it is efficient. Speed and efficiency is always very important, and so whether you look at protein retention, energy retention, feed conversion, carbon footprint, all of these things are dramatically better in aquaculture systems than they are in poultry, swine, and especially in beef and dairy cattle. The other thing is if you're going to go do that, you have to make sure that the nutritional quality of these products is as good or better than the existing diets. And this is one of the good things about aquaculture, if done properly, that it is a nice balance of protein, minerals, and vitamins, and healthy lipids. How we produce farm fish is very, very important. You hear horror stories of this not being done well, but best aquaculture practices are starting to be brought in as industry standards, and it is our hope that these will be widely adopted, and eventually they could become the standard by which everything is produced under those kinds of conditions. So here's another thing that I think the audience needs to understand. There is a profound disruption to the global plant protein landscape that's about to occur. And that is going to come from sustainable biofuel demand from soy. There is a major trend underway to increase the processing capacity for soybeans. Renewable biodiesel capacity is going to skyrocket dramatically, and in a very short period of time, the next 5 years for sure. Estimates vary from 10 to up to 30 million more acres. And so for context there, in the United States, about 3 million acres is used for direct consumption of soy protein going into human food. And so there's going to be a tremendous opportunity to valorize a very large amount of soybean meal that's going to come as a result of this sustainable biodiesel initiative. I think the way, for those that have been aware of agriculture in the United States over the last 20 plus years, this is somewhat analogous to what happened when the ethanol industry came and added to the corn processing industry. If you look at the density and location of where biofuel plants from corn now exist, it is all over the map. And potentially this is going to happen with soy. And every one of these plants has an opportunity to actually valorize that soybean meal, because soybean meal itself has a lot of issues if you're going to try to use it by itself in these types of diets, whether it be aquaculture or companion animals, humans, or other livestock species. So you can almost imagine that every one of these new expansion facilities could have an opportunity to have a fermentation process adjacent to it. So let's talk about that a little bit. This is the high level view of the technology platform that was created. It started at South Dakota State University, 2 professors, one who was an industrial microbiologist, the second one who was an aquaculture nutritionist. Bill Gibbons and Mike Brown were the co-founders of our company, and their collaborative efforts led to the early observations that you could take a patented fungal fermentation that has yeast-like properties and valorize soybean meal and make it a better ingredient for aquaculture production. Better ingredient in terms of its nitrogen and phosphorus digestibility. The density of protein is a lot higher as well too. You can see that here, starting from soybeans and then expelling of soybeans to remove a portion of the oil, increases the protein content slightly. This is the raw material for our fermentation process. And after we do microbial enhancement, we have a product that is about 75% protein. And that technology platform is also poised to enable other quality improvements and also enhancements in terms of sustainable manufacturing and asset utilization. This is an example of what you can see. There's a very different molecular weight distribution of the proteins that are present in this microbially enhanced protein. Compare and contrast it to these 2 soy protein concentrates. Here's a soybean meal that's a starting material. These are squid meal, poultry meal, and fish meal. And you can see that the animal byproduct meals tend to be more heavily hydrolyzed, but nothing is hydrolyzed to the extent as imipro is. And it is through this protein hydrolysis that the nitrogen utilization is improved in a number of formulations. We knew early on that we needed the ability to not just test, but have the testing results turn into new production techniques. And so adjacent to each other in Brookings and Volga, South Dakota, we have a fermentation manufacturing facility, but we also have a feed mill as well as a recirculating aquaculture system that can grow fish and shrimp, saltwater, freshwater species, and it's very, very flexible, and it allows you to have rapid turnaround time in terms of the ability to get results back to drive product development and process innovation. In addition to being able to provide protein and essential amino acids for these particular diets, we and our customers have been very interested on whether or not having a more pristine environment in which their animals are being grown might actually have a benefit from a health and wellness standpoint. And here's a result of a multi-growth stage trial with the larger shrimp hatchery in Central America, Sumaqua, and across multiple life cycle stages, the diets that have been formulated with ImiPro versus the diets that have been formulated with fish meal showed improved survival rate. And as you can see there, this particular customer, from a testimonial standpoint, says he's helping us raise more shrimp in our hatchery, which is very, very important for the industry. So this is kind of a cartoon of our manufacturing facility. It gives you a sense of the regulatory climate that we are actively pursuing. You have to have these if you're going to go into freedom to commercialize in certain territories and in certain market segments. And so again, soybean meal is our raw material and ImiPro is our primary ingredient that is produced. We also have a soy syrup that is created as a co-product during that. Right now it is being sold as a nutritional ingredient into the beef cattle industry, but we know that there are a number of very interesting components within that soluble stream, peptides, oil, single cell proteins, a number of things that if fractionated and purified, we think can add greater value to the overall manufacturing footprint. So these are all areas of exploratory efforts as we go forward and build upon the asset base that we have at Volga. So I'll close here. The mission statement to kind of tie everything back together. We start with what we believe is a better material source. We sit right in the middle of one of the largest soybean producing regions in the world. We do work with soybean growers who are willing to grow special genetics that are non-genetically modified and ultra high protein. That allows us to make products that have better performance and ultimately have a better environmental impact because of their improved nitrogen and phosphorus digestibility. And so with that, I'll leave it for questions from the audience.
Thank you, Phil. I'd like to start with some of the questions, especially related to this debate overall on genetically modified or genetic engineered products, especially in soy. What the situation in Ukraine and Russia taught us, and some of the agricultural practices, and especially in Europe, we are going to be short of food, and with increasing droughts and so forth. So, what do you think the overall the position of the consumers and the people? What do you feel around the world, the sentiment to the GMO and the genetically engineered foods?
Great question, Mehmet and the audience. It varies dramatically. We have some customers, specific examples are those in the salmon industry in Scandinavia, who demand that all of their feeds be made from non-genetically modified raw materials. And so we have established supply chains where non-GM soybeans are produced into soybean meal. And then those are used as the raw material for the manufacture of ImiPro. And then those are provided into Norway, for example. We have others. Good example are the shrimp producers in Central America, Ecuador, who don't see that as an issue whatsoever. And in fact, what they want is affordability. And so the issue that you have with non-GM raw materials in almost every instance is that they're more expensive. 10 to 15% more expensive as a ballpark, okay? And in situations like shrimp production, where it's gotten very, very large, very, very competitive, those types of differences really count. And so the answer is it depends. Answer is it depends. We have had to establish protocols and physical assets at our facilities to allow for identity preservation from raw material coming into the facility through finished product going out to customers. So it is a little bit more trouble, but candidly not that bad. It is more expensive. It is more expensive, and we shouldn't ignore it. We shouldn't ignore that.
My second question, more about the technical. One of the slides you talked about some of those SDS page, some of those protein structures after the fermentation process, and based on the process, what you're achieving is more like a low allergen type protein. Is this like can you comment on that? Like, what are your observations? What type of work going on in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question, Mehmet. It's an area of extreme curiosity on the part of customers of ours and for us. The challenge is that the current allergen quantification methodology, got to be really careful in terms of interpreting whether or not those analytical methods are appropriate for for an ingredient that is fundamentally different in terms of its protein and peptide distribution. So we're right in the middle of that, using existing methodologies, and chances are we're going to have to do some very basic fundamental characterization of this material. People want this. Things like therapeutic pet foods, therapeutic dog foods in particular. There's a whole series of products that consumers pay a sizable premium for because it's better for their companion animals. And so a product like this could deliver those kinds of benefits. So it's an area of very active research, and hopefully one that we'll be able to publish on in the very near future.
Great. Thank you, Phil. In terms of, again, so many topics you covered. Thank you so much again for your great insights and the presentation. Thank you. And the next question in our session is the fermentation ecosystem in Finland, the Synbio expertise. And this presentation will be presented by Dr. Jussi Jantti, and he'll talk about, again, the overall Synbio expertise. Dr. Jantti is a principal scientist and a research team leader at VTT, Technical Research Center at Finland, and an adjunct professor in biochemistry at the University of Helsinki. He's a member of the board of the European Federation for Biotechnology, Microbial Biotechnology Division, and a member of advisory board on biotechnology appointed by the government of Finland. His research focuses on the development of novel genetic engineering tools for microbes that are used in industrial biotechnology for sustainable production of a wide range of end products. With that, I'd like to introduce you, Dr. Jussi Jantti. Thank you.
And you need to unmute.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Sorry very much. So, hello everybody. Let's start again. So thank you for joining. And I will tell you about the Synbio Powerhouse ecosystem and how it is trying to build a sort of fermentation ecosystem in Finland. And before we go there, so a few words about the synthetic biology. So the promise is that synthetic biology will revolutionize biotechnology. And it does it by, it aims at refactoring nature's functionalities encrypted in DNA code. And by doing that, it enables design of cells, molecules, structures not found in nature. And this idea of being able to, by designing and changing the DNA code, sort of writing a code for biology, you can generate different kind of functionalities. And so this is very exciting, and it has boosted a lot of research and innovations globally. And huge investments have been taken place in biotechnology and Synbio companies in recent years. And just as a sort of the most extreme example, maybe the Ginkgo Bioworks in the US. But I mean, there are numerous others. And these new companies are generating a novel type of ecosystems where each company solves a sort of a small solution in the puzzle. And here on the right, there's just a sort of a snapshot of a representation of this type of an ecosystem in the USA. So the thing is that nature is an incredibly efficient circular bioeconomy. And if we could capture the capability of organisms in nature to that, how they can convert different kind of raw materials to different kind of sort of molecules. So if we could capture that capability through synthetic biology, that would be really, really, really nice. And that is what synthetic biology aims at doing. So we try to generate tools that enable not just using of more broad range of microorganisms, for example, that can convert different carbon sources to products, but also to sort of have different type of raw materials converted very efficiently into products. And this we do by changing the microbes, their genomes. And the idea is that by developing these technologies, this process of developing new production hosts becomes faster and more predictable, hence more sort of cost effective for the industry. And there's this synthetic biology paradigm, the design, build, test, learn cycle that is followed to achieve this, because frankly, currently our designs for biology are still rather poor. So we have to do several cycles in order to achieve the desired end product. So important here is, of course, the development of computational tools and automation so that this happens sufficiently fast. But then the big question is that so there are already and there will be a lot of inventions, but do these scale? So biotechnology, of course, traditionally it is suited for very large scale. For example, the bioreactors for ethanol or lactic acid production, so we can be more than 1,000 cubic meters in size. And organisms like Saccharomyces cerevisiae or several filamentous fungi, so they can be grown in really large fermenters. So in principle, this is possible. The industrial production is well established for several products, but if we really want to make an impact with this industry, so more is needed, more end products are needed, and a more broad utilization of starting materials for the carbon sources is needed. So then, if we turn our eyes to Finland, so why synthetic biology in Finland? Well, first, we believe really that we need to, in order to sort of solve these big sustainability issues we have globally, so we need to learn from the nature and adapt nature's production capacity for sustainable manufacturing solutions. And then there's, of course, the strategic alignment. So biotechnology is identified in EU as one of the key enabling technologies for sustainable future. And then very recently, there was by the Biden administration this executive order for a national biotechnology and biomanufacturing initiative. And I'm sure when this materializes, it will stimulate the field tremendously. So Finland has a long history of know-how in biotechnology, relevant for biotechnology. We have developed the infrastructure, capabilities, and innovations in Synbio, not to the large scale, but I will come back to that later. And then we have a really strong focus on computation and artificial intelligence, for example, in Finland. And the synthetic biology is sort of named as one of the enabling technologies for growth in this Ministry of Economic Affairs and Employment Innovation Policy 2019. And at VTT, Technical Research Center of Finland, which is fully government owned, so we are of course happy to follow this this policy. Then some words about the Synbio Powerhouse. So Synbio Powerhouse was established to then coordinate this effort to make an impact through synthetic biology and industrial biotechnology. And this was really sort of initiated by the strong effort by Professor Merja Penttilä, who sort of devised the concept of Synbio Powerhouse and has been very critical for acquiring the initial funding for the sort of research and getting the network ecosystem going. And the important thing with this Synbio Powerhouse is really to collect everybody together in Finland and foster the industry relations and also link our activities to international activities. And a few words about the international network. So we've been really fortunate by having access to these ones listed here. For example, the Engineering Biology Research Consortium in the US, and actually also its predecessor, the Synberg, that was led by Jay Kiesling. So we were fortunate to be able to join those networks, and that has given us a very, very efficient way to network to US, but also beyond that. And the second one is the Global Biofoundries Alliance. So these biofoundries are labs that develop methods to really get this kind of high throughput engineering going. And this Global Biofoundries Alliance, established 2019, is I believe will be a very, very powerful operator in this field. And then thirdly, so we are members of this IBISPA network. So it's a European infrastructure network that aims for getting the industrial biotechnology sort of from small-scale R&D projects to large-scale production, getting that kind of a pipeline and service operating in Europe. And a bit about the activities of the Synbio Powerhouse ecosystem. So the key thing is that in top of there sort of is the industry renewal and identifying and helping the industry to overcome bottlenecks. Then together with the Business Finland agency, which is a public funding source in Finland, so to generate Invest Finland or fund the Invest Finland program, and also to sort of enable the use of best operations for disruptive businesses. And this, of course, then works as a sort of collaborative thing. So important here is that we have, like the bottom here, if you see my mouse, so there we have invested in establishing this kind of education for postdocs and PhD students, a Center for Young Synbio Scientists. There's a Center for Artificial Intelligence funded by the Academy of Finland. So we are collecting critical mass to get young, new sort of talents into this discipline. So building the scientific excellence and capabilities. Then I already mentioned the international networks that are important also for the building of the excellence. And then I mentioned the IBISPA network, but then I will say a few words later also about the Sunbiopilot Initiative that we have going now. And the impact that this net ecosystem aims for is to generate new business ideas, generate startups, attract venture capital, listening and sort of learning about customer needs, generate novel customers, and then also produce showcases. So, for example, we had this kind of showcase where we produced a headset so that all the parts of the headset were produced in microbes, so lactic acid, PLA, and so forth. And it got a tremendous publicity. So 1.5 billion people saw those sort of news captures. So I think these kind of showcases are really, really important for marketing of the things that the Synbio and industrial biotechnology can provide. And then, of course, there are various ecosystem tools that we use to help the ecosystem foster. Then a bit about the infrastructure as such. So we have a joint infrastructure together with the VTT, the sort of Technical Research Center of Finland, and the Aalto University School of Chemical Engineering. And here we have a broad range of fermentation capacity from sort of a small scale, also sort of these kind of semi-automated, like the Amber 250 system, to sort of 1,500 liter pilot scale. And and we have sort of tens and tens of these intermediate fermenters. So this is offered as for companies for R&D work as a service. But then very recently, this Sunbiopilot Initiative was launched, and this aims to sort of increase the capacity to use in Finland sort of raw materials that are sort of not for food use. So things that are local, because I mean, typically the investments follow cheap raw materials, and one of the things affecting the price is obviously the transportation costs, for example. And also for the sort of functional businesses, so the whole value chain need to be in place for sustainable production. But the big bottleneck in Finland, and actually globally and in Europe, is that there's a huge lack of adequate scale-up facilities, especially in the sort of 20 cubic meter range. And companies are really struggling to sort of commercialize their innovations because they don't get the systems tested sufficiently. So there's a pilot facility in making, and I would have liked to sort of share with you all that all the paperwork has been done, but there's a sort of green light from the public funders, and there's a lot of interest, and it seems that there's sufficient funding collected now, but the papers are not yet signed. So that was a disappointment for me that it didn't. Yeah, we didn't reach that yet, but I'm expecting that to happen in the next few weeks. But the aim is to sort of build this kind of a facility with one sort of food grade and one non-food grade 20 cubic meter fermenters in the southern Finland, where the transporter is then transport distances are quite short, and then have this to serve the Finnish industry, but also beyond. Obviously, it is accessible by anybody. And the timetable is that the construction would start sometime next year, and the sort of facility would be ready already at 2024. So rather fast. Let's hope that it happens with this time scale. And just briefly, two examples of actually VTT spin-offs that have also received quite nice funding and are building their own pilot facilities. This Solar Foods company, which is using a gas fermentation bioprocess. So they got several million funding, and they are building their own pilot facility in Finland. And they are producing a single cell protein, so it's microbial biomass. And then second one is Enifer Bio, which uses a pekilo microprotein, so single cell protein also. And this is a nice microbe in that sense that it was used in the 70s, and it was invented in Finland, a process that it could eat the very dilute side streams from the paper mills and could grow in really big, large fermenters. So we know that it scales. And they are also investing in building their production capacity in Finland. So path forward. Finland is small, so we are just 5.5 million people in total, but we are very tech-oriented, and it's critical for us to increase the critical mass. and to get sufficient innovation power and capabilities, and also the excellence in education is of course critical. We need to provide resources for the transition to happen, so the infrastructure and the workforce development, and then the international collaboration is obviously very important. This can't be done in isolation. And then we need to have tools to support the company initiatives. And it is important to generate success cases guided by the industry and by the industry. And this is just a slide where there are some additional links if you are interested in having a look at them later on. So with that, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jussi, for this wonderful presentation. It was really quite insightful, and you do quite a bit of things in Finland. So many opportunities for startups all the way to large-size companies. So if I can ask you about the position of regulatory in Europe, I know it's more like handled through like a centralized through EFSA, but like with all your involvements and positioning in Finland, you're like quite ahead compared to so many other countries there. Do you have a different type of position on the regulatory of these products, especially on the food scheme, plant-based or different type of dairy or animal-based products? Can you comment on that?
Sorry, your voice is cutting a bit, so I have problems in hearing.
I'll repeat my question. I wanted to ask you about the because Finland is like so well ahead in this whole fermentation and bioengineering. You've been doing quite a bit of work compared to other European countries. And in general, regulatory has been handled by EFSA, primarily centralized in Europe.
Yeah.
But are there any other type of thought process or more like initiatives on the regulatory side in some of these fermented and bioengineered products in Finland for them to get accelerated or accepted by the marketplace and so forth?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So thank you for that. So we don't have any other means. This is, I mean, the EFSA is there we have to go when we look at the European market. So that's how it is. So I don't have any other way around to that.
You don't have that capability to look at options. Okay. Thank you. I'd like to go back to Phil if he has any questions to address.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jussi. That's I've had long collaborations with colleagues in Finland, and have always been impressed by both the intellect and the energy, and this is no exception. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Couple questions, more sort of strategic. How do you see facilities like this optimizing, say, carbon sources that would drive these types of fermentation processes with materials that would be unique to Finland and Northern Europe, sugar beet, cereals, things like this. How are you going to get interesting technology that will be a competitive advantage from a raw material standpoint? And then the second one is how do you set priorities in terms of what ultimate applications this technology will be pointed towards? One example is this material science that could completely change and revolutionize, biodegradable plastics and things like this. There are major issues in the environment. How does the fermentation environment in Finland kind of wrestle with that whole front end to back end opportunity? Because you could innovate along a very wide supply chain, and how do you decide where you'll focus your, as you say, your somewhat limited resources to be competitive?
Yeah, so that's again a great question. I think, as I mentioned in my presentation, that it's important that there's plenty of raw material close by when you start to make business out of these kind of solutions, and hence also this the pilot facility that is now sort of hopefully starting to being built very soon. So it also invests in technologies that enable sort of the lignocellulosic material use. So there will be pre-treatment processes developed in there that will enable this to answer sort of your question. Sugar beet is then one alternative or one raw material that has been considered there, but volume-wise in Finland, so the sort of lignocellulosic material is really superior. So, and sorry, what was the other question that you had?
The other one is at the end of the process, what strategic applications around the products that would come out of the fermentation processes? And I use the example of novel materials that could be superior plastics that would have much better sustainability. Just as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think if we want to solve these really big sustainability issues that we have, so we need to be able to replace the sort of large volume products that exist. And as you said, I mean, the polymers is obviously one thing that we are not going to, humans are not going to quit using sort of plastics. We just have to generate new type of plastics that are more readily sort of biodegradable. And of course, there are sort of PLA is of course one example of that, and it is an existing large volume product. But so it takes also, because one of the important things in Synbio is that you try to design your products so that you can predict from the early on for the whole system how you make it metabolically. You produce the precursors for your, say, polymer. So everything is designed. The properties are designed into the synthesis, and that's what needs to be done. I'm not saying that we achieve that very efficiently currently, but that's where the effort needs to be.
Very good. Very good. Thanks.
I think we have one other question from the audience. How about the fermentation for fertilizer? Like, can you comment on that? Jussi, what's the overall the feeling in Finland and the type of products being utilized and the overall carbon footprint and the overall positioning of these products?
Sorry, again, your voice was cutting from the beginning. I'm very sorry.
Oh, no. There is one question from the audience, AOCS from the YouTube. There's one question about the fermentation for fertilizer. When you look at the fermentation bioengineering process for fertilizer, can you comment on that in terms of the carbon footprint, the overall availability, and how does it fit in the overall circular economy?
Yeah, that's a very good and relevant question, obviously, but that goes unfortunately beyond my expertise. So I haven't sort of looked into that. So I'm sorry, I can't. Better not to answer when I don't know exactly the right answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much again. Thanks for your very insightful presentation. Thank you.
All right, our next topic is going to be presented by Dr. Bruno Xavier. He's going to look at the overview of academic industrial partnerships in fermentation and bioengineering. Very, very timely topic, particularly with the recent executive order coming from the White House, how that's going to be done. So Dr. Xavier is a senior extension associate at Cornell University. He holds a PhD in microbiology and a bachelor's degree in food engineering. Previously worked as a postdoc associate in milk quality improvement at Cornell, and as a university professor, where he taught courses related to biotechnology and industrial microbiology. Currently, Dr. Xavier is Associate Director of the Cornell Food Venture Center, a major extension program of the Department of Food Science at Cornell University, and Scientific Fellow at the New York State Center of Excellence in Food and Agriculture. Dr. Xavier and his team develop outreach programs and extension activities to support new and established entrepreneurs, processors, and farmers introducing new products into the marketplace, and provide guidelines and assist in regulatory issues to ensure that the safety of any products are met. As a process authority, Dr. Xavier oversees the establishment of scheduled process documentation to comply with federal and state regulatory requirements for more than 2,500 products per year for companies throughout the United States. So 2,500 a year at 50 weeks a year, you're a busy man.
They have a good team.
Yeah, exactly. So Bruno, we're looking forward to your presentation. Take it away.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, everyone, and the AOCS for the invitation, opportunity to be speaking with you all here today. It's a pleasure to be sharing this information with you and sharing about our perspective in fermentation farming, a term that I hope that I will explore with you today, and also the resources that we have available and how we envision academic partnership in this sector. The picture that you have in the background here is what I love to call Disneyland for food nerds. Everybody that comes to our pilot plant enjoys our ability to make things on the fly here as needed. We can change the equipment that we have available. Is a true pilot plant in that way, and it's been that way for more than 30 years. And we have seen a lot of change in the food and agriculture sector in New York State, in the United States, and beyond over these 30 years. And fermentation farming is a new change that we are also observing and also trying to help our stakeholders to make it take advantage of the opportunities and face the challenges that this change imposes on us. So this term, fermentation farming, first of all, you all have heard and you know that we struggle a little bit defining what we are doing here. We talk about biomass fermentation, precision fermentation, but then even the term fermentation doesn't scientifically apply to a lot of what we're doing, right? As a lot of these processes that we are discussing here are aerobic processes. So anyways, there will be a lot of conversation about what we should call them. We choose to use the term fermentation farming for a variety of reasons. First of all, because both words are very well known by the public. Nobody's scared by fermentation. Everybody understands yogurt. Everybody understands sauerkraut, and certainly everybody understands farming. And what we are doing is expanding the concept of fermentation using these natural or machines that exist in nature, right? As cells are, we are using them at a new scientific paradigms to expand our ability to farm. So that's how we put that concept out, and that has been tremendously successful for us. People understand what we are doing, and it's a term that we are trying to use to explain what we are doing here at Cornell as well. Fermentation farming goes beyond the processes involved in fermentation. Is not simply the big shiny tanks that we are talking about. And I was very jealous, Jussi, of the tanks that you showed at Synbio. I would love to visit and see if we can work together with Finland. But it goes beyond that, right? One step is the fermentation. There are things that have to happen before. You have to create the nutrients. You have to design the microorganisms. Sometimes you have to train them, as we like to call them, for good behavior in a fermentation, scaled up fermentation system. And then we have all the downstream operations that we need to apply in order to make food in the end. And so that's why we like to emphasize that fermentation farming is a production system. And again, going back to Dr. Jantti fermentation before, he mentioned solar foods, like production of protein from thin air, right? Which is true. You're taking gases and making into biomass, which contains a high concentration of protein. But what these companies are doing is replacing not only the food industry, right, or the farm. You're replacing the production of the fertilizer, the production of the crops that would feed the cow, that would then be slaughtered, that would then be taken, changed into a steak. And you can do that in the same location. So you're concentrating several steps of the fermentation of the food production system into one facility. A lot is happening in the same spot, and that has tremendous consequences. It means that the production of everything that is happening there, and takes energy, it takes water, takes energy, takes people, takes equipment. All of that is concentrated, and the demand for these resources are tremendous, meaning that a lot of these processes will require very good mathematical modeling, very good control of the inputs in order to make sure that we remain competitive when we actually get out of this phase of trial and error in several ways here, and stabilizes, and we're going to be competing in a normal situation. We would have to have very good systems to control these inputs and make sure that they are available at normal, normalized state. Anyways, so another very curious thing about this food production system that fermentation farming is that it varies. While everyone understands what a farmer that is making, selling milk, everybody understands what they do and how they do it. The only difference is the cows, or sometimes what they feed them in different countries. In our system here, everything may be different. The types of cells used, the regime that these cells are grown, the substrates that are used, how that they are separated, purified, and converted into food, all those things are variable. So, and what that means is that there is a lot of knowledge that is necessary, and a lot of input into the development of this knowledge that is also necessary. And that's where partnerships with academic institutions become extremely important. However, most of the technology that we are using already exists. However, we use these technologies in sometimes microliter scale, and we are bringing them to thousands and hundreds of thousands of liters to be fully developed. So the technology, the type of science that we need in some situations, or maybe in most of the situations, is different, is more applied than discovery, than fundamental science. So there's a lot of need to understand how extension works. So extension plays a tremendous amount of work in this, tremendous important role in these partnerships between academic institutions and these companies in this sector, because we are doing translational research, right? Something that will make the things that we already know how to do available in a form that is usable for these companies. We are facing several bottlenecks, adjusting these technologies, scaling up fermentation capacities. And one that I would like to focus a little bit is on professionals, right? We even bioprocess engineering, a field that I work with here at Cornell still, is relatively new. When I did my undergrad in food science, I had the privilege of having to explain to my family, to my neighbors, and everybody else what food engineers did. And here I am again trying to explain to my family, friends, and so on what bioprocess engineering does. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, of course, because these undergrads, when they're coming to college, they really don't understand what it is. That's not usually a course of option that is easily available in our institutions. So it results that we still don't have all the professionals. And this conference is important to shine some light into that, because there is a huge opportunity here for chemical engineers, electrical engineers, and all kinds of professionals that have the basic capacity and could build into their background to become active players into this sector. I will not talk much about why fermentation farming needed. I think Phil gave a tremendous background on that, and I would also point you to read and to follow the Good Food Institute. They have tremendous information about that to inform whenever you have to sell an idea or a project to your board or to leadership at your academic institution. GFI has done a tremendous amount of work gathering the data and showing why this is important. However, why specifically fermentation farming fills these gaps related to environmental impact and the limitations of traditional agriculture? We need to continue expanding our food production, reducing the costs while energy costs are skyrocketing, right? My sister lives in Germany. Her electricity bill went up 357% in the past year. What does that mean for the farmers, right? Just imagine that situation, and how can we make better use of that electricity in the years to come as the population continues to grow and tensions, international tensions, and I don't even need to mention as how important these tensions are right now. We need to tackle this problem seriously. These are actually national security issues that every nation should be aware of. How to make food available cheaply and solve the problems of food insecurity around the world. Fermentation farming can help with that, reducing the cost of production, reducing the waste of water, better use of the energy supply, and increasing the public concern around ethics, which is continuing, right? And we want to play into that as well. Fermentation farming is a solution for that, as we can produce, as was mentioned already, the same proteins that are produced in traditional processes. We can produce that in fermentation as well, however, in a much more efficient way. So I just mentioned here the one of the very important blog posts that GFI has about the agriculture at crossroads. It's very informative, again, if you need the data to justify your projects. So still on why fermentation farming, very, very quickly, and I would love to hear some questions about that. We look at the ability of producing things very quickly and filling the gap very quickly. So whenever you have a 20,000 liter bioreactor, as Synbio is putting up in Finland, and you inoculate them with, let's say, 100 liters of culture, very quickly that bioreactor is going to be full with the bacteria because they grow exponentially, right? So exponential growth is the name of the game in fermentation. That means that when that bioreactor reaches a stationary state, you will produce 20,000 liters of fermented material within a certain amount of time. Let's say, 1 day, 2 days. Some microorganisms grow a lot faster than that, but that's the idea. Exponential growth allows our production to increase very quickly and for continuous production to happen at a very strong pace. Different from a farm. If you want to expand the size of your farm, you have to buy more land. So it's not exponential, it's almost an arithmetic growth. Space, as I mentioned, we do things in a concentrated way, but all the biochemical activity is still happening. It's important to know we have a huge demand for energy. We have a huge demand for water. We need to make sure that these things are available wherever we are deciding to set up our fermentation capacity. We have a tremendous impact here on cost, right? Currently, in some of these processes, the cost is higher than traditional products, but they are not scalable, right? And especially because we're not considering the environmental cost yet. we have to look at the ability of the fermentation farming to make us ready for the moment when the planet brings the bill. And my perception is that it's already the bill is on the table already. One very important aspect of fermentation farming is that it can be portable. You can have a small fermentation farming facility producing protein ingredient at a scale similar to a farm. And that's also important because we have, as we saw during the COVID pandemic, that our fermentation of food production system is relatively vulnerable to disruptions in the global supply chain. And having facilities that are smaller is important in some situations and some localities. But most importantly, in the end here, microorganisms are very versatile, modifiable. We have several possibilities here to change what they do to make these to make the food that we want. And this is a slide here that we could spend the rest of the day, the rest of the week talking about. In fact, I have an entire course in industrial microbiology about this thing here. Is the choices that we have to look at as we are designing a fermentation process for food production, right? First of all, we have to choose the kind of microorganism or cells right, that we will be using to produce that food, including bacteria, yeast, molds, microalgae, and plants. I should have said mammalian cells as well here, but that's also something. Insects, another type of process that we have been looking at. Analyze the cell characteristics. They are very diverse in terms of the types of carbohydrates they use. So we just saw a type of fermentation there in which you start with a high fiber content material, and you improve the protein quality into that. I'm talking about the soy meal fermentation process that Dr. Jantti mentioned. The needs for oxygen or not, easy separation. Again, getting into the nuts and bolts here of the downstream processing, right? Separation of the cells from the culture. Some modes can give you yields of up to 36%, 40% in terms of volume of the bioreactor, while some bacteria will give you a few grams per liter, right, of dry microbial cells. So there are challenges in separating those. Looking at growth rate, energy source, we can go from electricity to generate hydrogen, or we can start already with soluble substrates. Different microorganisms may have different diversity for you to play with as you faced with downstream processing challenges, right? So if you have your process already designed and approved for a certain microorganism to produce a certain protein, but then as you scale up, that microorganism foams up too much, you may want to be able to rely on the diversity of that species to find an alternative, an easy or cheaper way to solve that challenge. So looking at the physiology and genetic diversity of that microorganism as early as possible is very important, and obtaining a way to evaluate and maintain those cultures. Genetic tools available for microorganisms, and if they have antibiotic resistance, or if antibiotic resistance is a tool that you may want to play with, but is definitely a thing for some yeast fermentations and others. And then you choose the fermentation processes. We have solid, liquid state, aerobic, anaerobic, batch, fed batch, continuous, stirred, plug, photobioreactors, electro-assisted bioreactors, something that I'm very fond of. But anyways, there are tremendous opportunity here to look at how your process can be the most efficient possible. And all of these lines here in this slide mean decisions that one needs to make before you choose the process. My bottom line here is that some of the companies that we see in the sector did not go through this. It was actually a successful PhD thesis, for example, that was successful at that level, and then we decided to put that forward. But there's a lot that can be done by looking at the process from the beginning and designing these processes with the intent of producing a certain food or a certain ingredient for food production. Quickly here, we identify here a need and opportunity because the research efforts by the private sector are very expensive if done from scratch and on their own. We generate a situation in which companies have to raise a tremendous amount of money and we still have inefficient uses of resources. And why? Well, it's because it's the private sector doing basic research, right? And a lot of these research might have already been done at university campuses around the world. And we need to have the ability to tap into that. Who is the best at fermentation, aerobic fermentation at a scale of 20,000 liters? If Synbio has that, I need to know, and I need to have the capacity to work in collaboration with them to put that fermentation on the road as quickly as possible. Research institutions, academic institutions do that all the time. So we have a very strong network, and this can be a plus for solving that problem. In these institutions, such as Cornell, we provide research as a service, and which there are many reasons why we do that. But one very important is that it helps us to keep our tools sharpened, right? We want our researchers to be in direct contact with the needs from the industry, so that we know what's going on, we know what we should be doing next. And also provides opportunity for students, professionals, graduate programs, and so on. And here at Cornell, we have a very strong extension experience here in food science and in our microbiology and bioprocess engineering departments. And that provides the connections with traditional industry that Mehmet asked an important question before. We want to make sure that dairy industries and traditional companies have the opportunity to look into the sector, to grow in it as well. And we have been successful at attracting those interests. There are some challenges. The IP framework is not what one would necessarily desire. It's not your dream situation, because universities are developing the intellectual property and companies are using it. How can we provide that quickly to this sector? So we get into a discussion here on what is a service, what is a research project, how do we provide the licensing, can we do, instead of licensing, get into the project as a partner, right, in exchange for equity in the company. So these discussions happen all the time. They are not very fast, because most importantly, there are conflicts of interest in the middle. A lot of the resources that are available here, including salaries paid to researchers and the laboratories that they use, are publicly funded. So we have to tackle this issue of use of public investment for private interests. So that's why this discussion is relatively slow, and leads to this dilemma here. In academia, usually we move slow and steady, trying to reduce risk. In industry, we pay for the risk, right? We can have a high risk because we want to go fast, bumpy things like, well, learn quick, fail quick, and learn and move on, right? So these things don't really fly in academia. We really want to reduce the risks of such endeavors. So in order to match those modus operandi, right, we need vision and leadership, both from academia and from the companies that we are working with. And that's something that we have been working strongly to develop here, is a background in this the vision, right? Identifying the right opportunities for each one of those involved. And another possible point here of discussion here is the political pushback, right? Some institutions are within an environment where political pushback is a definer for what research is funded or is stimulated and what is not. I don't like to sugarcoat that point. I know it for a fact that it is. It's not that this current endeavor here was challenged in any way by that. In fact, Cornell AgriTech, where I am, is in a tremendously privileged position. But there are political pushbacks at play that need to be addressed. So we need to be aware of that and make our decisions accordingly. Why are we focusing on it? So Cornell is a very large institution, but we see fermentation farming as a strategic investment. You can go online and look for our 2050 moonshots, and fermentation farming is squarely in there in our great big goals that we have, from synthetic biology, mathematical modeling, the environment, and feeding our growing population. it's almost like our 2050 roadmap was designed around what we are discussing in these conversations here. And plus, fermentation farming is a multidisciplinary field, and we know that the education of the next decades will have to be multidisciplinary because the challenges that we are tackling now as a society are so vast, so diverse. So that's why we come back to the resources that we have here in Geneva, New York, in some of the research readiness goals that we have. These are some of the projects that we have ongoing here on campus, and some are more advanced than others. And it's not a comprehensive list, but it goes from conversion of fiber into feedstock, into feeds for animal feeding. So some type of a hybrid project, right? Using fermentation farming to continue boosting the traditional technologies. Production of protein, bioplastics, and other bioproducts from waste streams from the food and agriculture industry. Expression of protein. So of course we have a very strong molecular biology, biotechnology apparatus that can serve these industries, and scaling up. So establishing partnerships with companies manufacturing bioreactors to see what we can do to tackle this tremendous problem of fermentation capacity that in this slide I mentioned. It's a real issue, and we don't see a lot of conversation about that. I'm very happy that Dr. Jantti mentioned it. We don't have enough fermentation volume available in the world to cope with even the most modest forecast for this industry. So we need to tackle it. We need to make sure that the right technology is being used to design and manufacture these bioreactors. And in this slide here, I intended to talk a little bit about how we value these companies, right? You see that we are in the middle of technical support, but also some of the business support for these companies. And it's important that everyone understands what's value, how do we value a technology. So this is not to value a company, value the technology that the company is using. And we have several issues to be considered: what organism, what process, and so on. Scalability, sensitivity to contamination is one that is important to discuss. A lot of these, the leaders in the technical design of these processes come with these academic impression that these fermentation tanks need to be completely sterile. It's not the case. We can produce sterile milk from a cow that is far from being sterile. So why are we focusing on having fermentation tanks that are always 100% sterile, right? It's just because we don't know enough about fermentation. That's another issue that we have to put at play, and to understand, and then to come up with a good plan about how we become big, how we become competitive in the real world situation, right? And also downstream processing. We have to pay more attention to what is available, to the technologies that are available to reduce the costs of separation, extraction, purification, and then the product development that needs to go into these new ingredients. Finally, just to help here, my side of the story, why I would like companies to be looking at Cornell as a viable alternative to work with you. We have a commitment to reduction of the environmental impact of human activities. If you look at the dean of the college right now, that's the first item in his bio, right? His strong background in environmental sustainability. New York is well positioned for this. We have this is where most of the consumers are, the Northeast, and that's also where the capital that will fund these projects is. So we want to establish those connections as well. We have resources. Weather is not good for farming, but in the bioreactor is always cozy and warm. And we have expertise, we have equipment, and we have the processes. And for timing, that's what I'm telling here internally. Like, it's not too late, and the world is paying attention. So Cornell is paying close attention to this as well. Is an opportunity that we cannot miss. And finally, some things here that for us to be thinking about. Why is hard to establish these academic partnerships with the private sectors? Where does initial funding comes from is a big challenge, because people look at Cornell. Cornell has I don't know how much, $4 billion in their endowment account. It's not my program's account. It's completely separate. Our programs need to be independently sustainable. So these are challenges that we have to face. Now, where does the money come from? And that comes from the private support. The things that we provide here are at cost, right? But we need to create the initial funding with government partnerships or grants and so on. So it needs to be addressed. How can we acquire and retain talent through these processes, right? So we can hire a technician, and that is a regular employee. But if we want to work with postdocs, which have the advantage of they can come from anywhere in the planet, right? We can attract them to the US and work in our facilities here as a postdoc, but then we need to fund them for at least 1 year. So companies need to be aware of that opportunity and also how to use them. It needs to be an extensive project that also needs to have something in for the university. We need fast routes to IP management and licensing, and Cornell is working on that, and it has a very strong intellectual property team, which includes the cost of the lawyers, right? Once a company comes here and signs a contract with Cornell that will involve licensing, Cornell is taking care of that, and we have a very strong team specialized in creating, defending these patents, and so on. And my last point here is that leadership on both sides need to understand each other's vision, right? What's in it for me? We have to ask that question. We have to see what's in it for the institution. We need to understand what's in it for the researchers and for the company on the other side, for their leadership and for their customers, and how we can address those issues. The reason why I mention this is because leadership is not something that is usually discussed in these forums, but a lot of the projects that I have seen don't fail because of lack of technology, lack of opportunity, of lack of ability to solve a problem, or inexistence of a problem, right? Is because of bad leadership. And leading a team of research-oriented companies in this sector today, facing the challenges that COVID is still left us in supply chain and so on, in a situation where we don't have enough employees or professionals available with the right background, is a tremendous challenge. So paying attention to the leaders that are chosen and forming these leaders well and giving them the tools that are needed to lead to success is extremely important. I think some universities are starting to look into that, and is a very important thing to do for these companies. So I leave you with this picture of the beautiful Geneva in upstate New York. In this picture here, you can see the top there, that little chimney there is just the top of our campus here. So you can see the lake, our lakefront, and all the things that Geneva has to offer. And I hope to see you sometime soon here so we can discuss these projects. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I'll be happy to discuss some questions.
Thank you very much. I got to tell you, this is a very interesting concept. I'd love to see specific examples of the whole technology package from start to finish, especially with what kinds of products could come out of this fermentation farming concept. But I want to give, I want to ask you a question to give you a sense of, or give you an opportunity to talk about, do you think there is an opportunity for the miniaturized localization of these types of technologies at a scale that matches some of the ag supply chains versus these, giant industrial scale fermentation platforms that you typically think of fermentation engineers driving towards the largest scale facilities that they can because their experience tells them to drive to economies of scale. Is there a smaller, flexible, more sort of regionalized scenario that fermentation farming might be particularly suited for? Can you comment about that?
Yeah, just to start, I don't think I don't imply that fermentation farming is necessarily small, right? Fermentation farming is independent of the size. But your question is probably worth $1 billion, Phil, and I don't have the answer. Does it exist already? But I do think that it's worth exploring. So we should explore the possibility of identifying niche products that can be produced at scale, at a small scale, and can be profitable and sustainable. And we have several examples of that, right? If you go to a farmer's market, you will find alternative products locally produced that are, tackling on Nutella, for example. You can find those products in the farmer's market, and they sell for $8 a jar, and they are surviving off of that. So identifying the right Nutella alternative and tackling a company of that size is similar to the question that you are observing, right? Maybe we cannot produce, for example, beta-lactoglobulin at a small scale and be competitive with what what Perfect Day will do. But if you produce an ice cream using a fermented substrate, and you can sell that as an ingredient to be sent to ice cream stores, those possibilities are on the table, and some people are starting to explore those. We did some calculation here in one of our classes, and you can basically produce the same amount of protein that a farm with 100 lactating cows produce in a space that is about 500 square meters, right? And you can have that coming out of that space with basically a fermenter, a dried storage space, a centrifuge, and what you have in the end is something similar to concentrated milk. So with that concept in mind, one should be thinking that exploring the right opportunity, the right product, and the right market will allow for the creation of something that is, let's call it portable. I don't have a better term for that, but that's what I mean. Something that can be deployed and spotted all over the place instead of relying on large manufacturing facilities. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and so to follow up with a second question, then how do you see industry responding to this notion of a smaller but optimized set of unit operations? Because most of them, as the bigger the better. But then it introduces supply chain issues, cost of material shipping and the like, size of unit operations, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering if you're thinking there's opportunities to be flexible in the way you think about these things. They may be perfectly suitable for very large scale operations if that's appropriate, but it may also be very relevant for smaller enterprises. And if those can help satisfy the nutritional needs for people in the planet, so be it.
Yeah, and I think those things will happen in parallel. Economically, I think the world is, and I'm not the one saying, I'm just repeating what I've learned about it economically. Money is very cheap right now, even though it's tightening a little bit. So we will be focusing on large projects. I don't think, unless some economic huge change happens, we will continue to see companies getting bigger, buying each other, and concentrating under smaller and smaller groups of that control them. However, we will also see still other companies filling the gap of those customized solutions at small scale. I think fermentation farming provides for the flexibility for big processes and small processes. And we are seeing some things. For example, if you look back in history, right, when we started to make silage in farms, that is fermentation farming. You're increasing the protein value of a very cheap commodity, grass, right, and increasing the content for that, and the effect that it has on productivity is very high, and the cost is very small. So those types of ideas, I think, will flourish with the advent of the technologies that we have here. But we have a long ways to go. We need, for example, if you want a centrifuge, and you will not be able to get anything that is worthwhile less than $100,000 to separate cells, right? So we need technologies that are adequate for a small scale, and we don't have that yet. But I do think that this will come because there are products that we have identified that can be produced at small scale and sold in creating these operations that are like farms, $1 million to $10 million in value, and you can have a product that is solely reliant on fermentation technologies.
Very good, very good. Well, looking at the clock, we have to keep pushing forward. So again, thank you, Bruno, for joining us and presenting some very interesting concepts.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We appreciate it. Next. All right, our next presenter is Dr. Elaine Corbett, who's going to introduce us to Canada's $12.5 billion opportunity in food innovation. That'll get your attention. Elaine is the director and sector innovation and programs for Ontario Genomics. She has a PhD, and again, she's the director of sector innovation programs at Ontario Genomics, which is an Ontario-based not-for-profit organization dedicated to catalyzing and supporting genomics-based technologies across multiple economic sections for genomics-driven biotechnology. Lane's been at this for a while, 20 years of experience in academia, industry, and not-for-profit organizations, and has been at Ontario Genomics since 2014. Time flies when you're having fun, eh? Elaine? So we welcome learning about this, as it's a very sizable investment, and so we look forward to seeing the texture and the details of this major program north of the border. All ready for you, Elaine.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, hi everyone. It's really nice to be here today. To start off, I wanted to give you a brief overview of Ontario Genomics before telling you more about our work in the engineering biology space, the food and agriculture sector, and more specifically focusing on what we've been doing in the cellular agriculture space the last several years. So Ontario Genomics is a non-for-profit organization leading the application of genomics and synthetic or engineering biology-based solutions to drive economic growth, improve quality of life, and global leadership for Ontario. We work across three key economic sectors: agriculture and food, human health, and industrial biotech, and foster collaborative opportunities to collectively achieve our vision of healthy lives, a healthy economy, and a healthy planet through genomics innovations. So we have a 20-year plus history of building public-private partnerships, attracting funding from industry, provincial and federal partners for milestone-driven projects aimed towards commercialization and application. And we work across our multi-sectoral network with relationships across Ontario, Canada, and internationally. So over the last 20 years, Ontario Genomics has been funded both federally through Genome Canada and provincially through the Ontario government. Since our inception, there's been over $2.7 billion in raised matching funds for omics research and innovation in Ontario, over 230 projects and 500 partnerships. This includes over 20,000 jobs, and currently we have over 390 million in the active projects across the various sectors that we work in. We have deep technical and business expertise, with over half our staff having PhDs in genomics and related sciences, have private sector experience and deep knowledge, insight, foresight to identify high potential technologies and opportunities early. We work regionally within Ontario, and some of our work has a national focus, and I'd like to tell you a little bit more about both. So what drives us at Ontario Genomics are humanity's biggest challenges: climate crisis, food shortages, global health. So we work with our partners, funders, and stakeholders to help translate genomics and engineering and biology-based innovations to help solve these challenges. So this includes working to build capacity and drive the ecosystem in Ontario, building public-private partnerships that help support startups and companies while augmenting intellectual property and growing jobs, training of talent that have the relevant and necessary expertise for the various sectors and businesses, and education and engagement with various audiences to create awareness of the impact of genomics in everyday society. So Ontario Genomics has also recognized the growing importance of engineering or synthetic biology for many years, a platform technology based on the convergence of a number of different disciplines and applicable to many different industries, and has been driving the growth of the engineering biology community within Canada. So in 2018, we held our first international conference, Canada Synbio, and from that converged the formation of the National Engineering Biology Steering Committee in 2019 to help drive the ecosystem in Canada. We held the conference in webinar format in 2020 during the pandemic and held it again in person this past June, bringing together over 350 people for both an in-person and hybrid event. We also released 2 publications from the last few years that you see here. The first was in 2020 and the second just last November. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about both of those as well. So in our 2020 Engineering Biology White Paper, we identified 3 business verticals that Canada can capitalize on in this space. The first, biomanufacturing of advanced health technologies. The second, food security and the biomanufacturing of protein, ingredients, and other food products, also known as cellular agriculture. And third, the low carbon biomanufacturing of products to move towards a net zero carbon economy. So the same year, a McKinsey report indicated that advances in biological solutions, termed the biorevolution, will create $4 trillion in value in the next decade or 2, and that up to 60% of global inputs to the economy could be made biologically. Over 50% of those will come outside of human health, with 36% in agriculture, aquaculture, and food, with alternative proteins, including cultivated meat, plant-based, and synthetic proteins, worth 40 to 120 billion annually. This has been decades in the making, but is happening now because of a step change in our ability to understand and engineer biology. We have more affordable genome sequencing and gene editing technologies, and the continued convergence of the life and data sciences, and it's enabling us to produce products in a different and more sustainable way. In 2021, the Boston Consulting Group and Blue Horizon estimated that the alternative protein space, that again includes plant-based, microorganism, and animal cell-based, will reach at least 290 billion by 2035. Now, we've already talked about some of those today, but there's already been some large-scale investments promised in this space over the last several months. In April of this year, the Dutch government agreed to invest 60 million euros to support the formation of an ecosystem around cellular agriculture, and represented the largest public funding into the CELAG space at that time. And in alignment with our Engineering Biology White Paper, in early September, the Biden administration committed more than $2 billion to launch a national biotechnology and biomanufacturing initiative to drive US biotechnology leadership and economic competitiveness in this space. This covers the various sectors we identified in our white paper, including the biomanufacturing of food, such as cultivated meat. So why do we believe Canada could be a leader in this space? Well, Canada is a global leader in developing and improving agricultural technologies and is the 5th largest exporter of agriculture and agri-food products in the world. We have a global reputation for safe and high quality food products, and we have lots and lots of feedstock. We have the 3rd largest food and beverage manufacturing sector in North America, located in Ontario, and we have a wealth of multidisciplinary expertise and know-how in engineering biology that you can see here, and have a cross-sectoral knowledge, sharing, and collaboration from our health and industrial biotech sectors that can complement our strong agriculture and food sector. So in 2018, the Economic Strategy Table on Agri-Food and Industry Government Collaboration set an ambitious goal recommending that Canada will be one of the top 5 competitors in the agri-food sector, an innovator in value-added products to feed a dynamic global consumer, and stand out as the world's favorite protein provider. Canada's invested approximately $1 billion into the global innovation clusters, with more investments in the work, 2 of which, Protein Industries Canada and the Ocean Supercluster, are focused on plant proteins and ocean solutions, including sustainable proteins and oils, respectively. Cellular agriculture presents the next logical step to build on these investments. It's complementary and an opportunity to diversify and create new product categories and become an economically viable and essential industry in Canada that produces goods for both domestic and international markets. So what are we including in cellular agriculture? As we all know, and we've even heard today, there's lots of different names and terminology used in this space. What covers the biomanufacturing of products through precision fermentation, whereby cells such as bacteria, yeast, algae, and even plant cells can be turned into miniature biological factories and used to produce a desired product in brewery-style tanks, similar to how we brew beer, wine, or make kombucha. This could be more complete products such as egg white protein or honey, or ingredients such as flavorings and pigments. It also includes tissue engineering and cell culture, in which cells from animals, fish, or other seafood are grown outside the body in bioreactors to produce cultivated meat or seafood products. Now, these are just some examples of products that are in development, and in some cases on the market. There's been a multi-generation development of this technology, with precision fermentation-based rennet and cheese making being produced since the 1990s, dairy proteins and products such as ice cream and cream cheese, heme protein, the Impossible Burger, and plant-based products such as chocolate and coffee. You might have tried the Impossible Burger, which is widely available in North America, and heard of Perfect Day, where the Canadian Pension Plan Investment Board were lead investor in their Series C raise and co-led their Series D of $350 million. Mycelium is an example of biomass fermentation and can be grown in bioreactors to create bacon or steak fillet. And hybrid chicken bites made of cultivated chicken and plant-based ingredients are available in Singapore, the first country to provide regulatory approval to cultivated meat, while other products include beef, fish, or foie gras. So why are we so excited about the space? The types of products that can be produced are limitless. It's over $9.7 billion invested in the space when we calculated late last year. With immense economic opportunity developing, we want to help ensure that Canada and Ontario is an exporter of these products and not just an importer of what currently leading countries make. So the Canadian cellular agriculture landscape is also rapidly evolving and shows tremendous promise. Canadian startups are already taking advantage of the growing business-to-business and business-to-consumer opportunities to produce a wide variety of products. And we currently have over 20 cellular agriculture companies in Canada that we're aware of. And we're very excited to have over half those companies in Ontario. To give you an example of just a few of these companies and what they do, Future Fields are making growth factors for the cellular agriculture market. Whiteboard Foods are focusing on scaffolding from plant-based meat, cultivated meat, or alternative proteins. Liven Proteins are using precision fermentation to develop protein ingredients, improve the taste, texture, and cooking experience in plant-based food formulations. Mario Renewables is creating omega-3 fatty acids from algae, and Apalia are making whole milk with memory cells. So following our 2020 white paper, we decided to take a deeper look at the food security business vertical that focused on cellular agriculture. So last year, from the National Engineering Biology Committee, Steering Committee, whom we see here and who our CEO, Bettina Hamlin, is chair, we formed the Food Security Subcommittee, consisting of members of the National Committee, including Isha Tatar from New Harvest, Vince Martin from Concordia University, Stephen Webb from the Global Institute for Food Security, and Alison Sundstrom from Builders BC, to help provide guidance as we took a more focused look at the space. So working with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada and a team from the University of the Fraser Valley, we conducted a series of interviews and focus groups over several months with over 65 Canadian and international expert stakeholders to help identify and refine a list of benefits, challenges, key actions, and priorities for an emerging cell ag industry in Canada. We also engage with economist Michael Massa from the University of Guelph, who we work with closely to build and refine the economic case for cell ag in Canada that had a food innovation focus. So we launched our report, Cellular Agriculture, Canada's $12.5 billion opportunity in food innovation in last November. It explores the role and opportunities for cellular agriculture in creating made in Canada solutions for sustainable and resilient food supply chain, while also capturing market share in a changing global economy. The economic analysis in a report indicated that cellular agriculture could be worth $7.5 billion a year and up to 86,000 jobs by 2030, and up to $12.5 billion per year and over 140,000 jobs for Canada in the future. And we identified 3 actions that need to be taken for these benefits to come about. The first is develop a national vision and strategy for Canadian cellular agriculture industry in their near term. Have a collaborative plan for creating a strong industry across the country. This is foundational to help a growing domestic ecosystem and fully realize the benefits presented by this industry. An outcomes-driven national vision and strategy should be developed collaboratively, be inclusive of all stakeholder requirements, and include a clear plan for implementation in the short, medium, and long term. Second, establish a clear and transparent regulatory framework for cellular agriculture products in Canada. Canada was encouraged to proactively develop an agile, iterative, and innovative regulatory framework by building on existing processes to support the evaluation and approval of cellular agriculture products in a timely manner, and in alignment with Canada's current rigorous regulatory process and excellent food safety standards. This would help ensure the producers and manufacturers understand the pipeline and consumers have confidence that the products are safe. And finally, provide supporting mechanisms for research and commercial development so that we have capacity from research through to scaling. This will be critical for a thriving domestic cellular agriculture industry. This includes public and private investment and partnerships, outcomes-driven networks, along with infrastructure support for research and development, training, company creation, and scale-up, all towards made in Canada product commercialization and getting products on the market. So focusing on Ontario, we developed a partnership with the Canadian Food Innovation Network, or CFIN, and just a week after our report's release, we launched a joint funding competition, Accelerate On Food Innovation with Cellular Agriculture, and was the first dedicated cellular agriculture funding program in Canada. The competition was open up to startups, SMEs, and academics in Ontario using cellular agriculture innovation applied to the food and beverage industry, and whose projects were either enabled or had a component of genomics or engineering biology. We received a lot of excellent applications, and with an external expert committee, 4 projects were chosen to be funded that were announced last May. So we have Ardra, which is developing fermentation-based production of heme as a natural flavor ingredient. AquaTech is manufacturing fish muscle stem cells from a 2D to 3D culture system with their partner, the Center for Commercialization of Regenerative Medicine, to scale up its cell manufacturing process. We also have Evolved Meats, and they are creating cultivated pork belly that is identical to conventional pork belly. And then Michael Garton, an academic from the University of Toronto, working in collaboration with the company Biopilot and establishing foundational tools for cultivated pork production. So then last June at Canada Synbio, we had an impressive panel of international and Canadian experts talk about cellular agriculture and food innovation, from startups, investors, and champions in this space. Our moderator was Isha Tatar from No Harvest, Leji Gafour from Cub Food Science, Frey Loy from Live and Proteins, Avi Shashalam from Future Fields, and Tony Pavel from Perfect Day. Through their interactive and engaging conversation, they discussed our national report and recommendations and provided valuable insights and perspectives about what's needed to build a flourishing ecosystem in Canada, discuss bottlenecks in the pipeline from research to scaling, adoption, and regulations, and what Canada can and should do. So as next steps, we're working with our partners in the ecosystem in Ontario and beyond, and how we can help accelerate this alternative and compelling path to sustainably produce proteins, ingredients, and a variety of other food products, and help feed the world. We'd be happy to engage with anyone who'd like to speak to us about potential opportunities. Thanks so much for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have and connect with anyone afterwards who would be interested.
Thank you, Elaine. Very comprehensive initiative. I've got a question about a number of consumer relevant parameters for the technologies around cultured cells. What is the consortium's view on things like pricing sensitivity relative to traditional, forms of meat? That's the first one, and then the second one is where's that Canada from a regulatory perspective on how they're going to view this, and adjacent to that is how's the Canadian meat and seafood industry reacting to all of this?
Okay, that was 3 questions. So can you repeat the first question again? Because I've now forgotten the first one.
Pricing sensitivity.
Yeah, I guess, like any of these kind of products that would be produced, there's always new products that have come out, like, technology and the food and agriculture sector has been evolving over many, many generations. So you always want to look at life cycle analysis or economic analysis, and you want companies in this space are trying to get their products to, a competitive price point for consumers. I think the precision fermentation-based products are a little bit, more advanced just because of the nature of the technology and where it's at compared to cultivated. So it's going to be like, this is going to come out over time where you'll have different products and maybe a different price scale. Like if you look at the Impossible Burger, it launched in like high-end restaurants and so forth, and then ended up in A&W, and it keeps kind of moving. I think these kind of products will follow a similar path where in first introduced, they might be more expensive, but at time when these companies can come to scale, they'll make them more affordable for different populations.
So what do you think that timeline is?
I looked at, in Canada, I don't know. I'm thinking of the Boston Consulting Group. They thought by 2025, the precision fermentation-based products could be cost competitive. And I think 2035, the cultivated meat products could be price competitive. So we're looking, that's why I think one will be sooner than the other. But yep. I think Canada could be something similar to their projections.
Okay. Regulatory. How's that Canada weighing in on this?
Well, we actually did this report with Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, but so right now, cellular agriculture products are, regarded as novel foods, and will be regulated as such. They are keen to engage, with companies in the space, and understand that this is something that's evolving, and they'll, I think there's a plans for like they did an update to their plant regulations around engineering biology, around gene editing several years back, and I think there's plans to do ones around the microbial space, which I think this will probably fit into in the future. But right now it's a novel food.
Okay.
And the last piece.
How's the traditional dairy and meat industry reacting to this? We've had, as part of our consultations, we did have some traditional, producers involved. I think they're, I think that like any opinion across any kind of topic, it can be varied. I think some are keen to engage. I think some are keen to know what the opportunities could be for them. But like we'll go back to the point too that I think it was maybe your point, and I think others said it too. The population is growing. We need to feed the world. We need other ways to produce food. We see this as a complementary way to produce other kinds of food. There's always going to be a market for different kind of food products produced in different ways, and so we see it as an opportunity for Canada to, diversify and create new products. So I think there's opportunities for lots of different people. Matt, you have any questions?
No, I think I'm good. You covered most of them, and there's a lot to do in all these fields. I'm not sure there's that much competition going to be in the next 10 years, whether animal-based, plant-based, or fermentation bioengineering. We need to produce whatever we can. Over the last couple of years, that's basically what it taught us. So it's interesting to see what's happening in the world these days.
Awesome.
Yeah, what I want to see is when's the dairy industry gonna step up and share their stainless steel assets?
They have quite.
You know what I mean? Who's going to see it as an opportunity and say, hey, we could repurpose lots of capacity with stainless steel tankage and stuff? Might this be a way to differentiate our sustainability offerings? That'll be fascinating.
Well, you see a lot of the big companies like Tyson and Cargill and Maple Leaf Foods are, you know, they're all investing in alternative protein. So I think with time, others either are or will, you know, will know about them.
Yep. That's going to be fascinating, won't it be? Okay. Well, again, thank you.
Thank you.
Fascinating, fascinating story and a rapidly moving one. So
Thank you.
very good. Okay, Mehmet, you want to bring everybody back for a few questions if the audience has ones after you're done?
I think so. Let me go through the last one, and then we can for the last probably 5-10 minutes before we conclude.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Phil. My presentation, I'll be talking about the prime we are doing in the Western Canada, developing the fermentation and the bioengineering ecosystem in Saskatchewan. And in this journey, we have quite a bit of partners. We are working with Government of Saskatchewan, Prairie Economic Development Canada, Protein Industries Canada, Protein Cluster, University of Saskatchewan, College of Agriculture and Bioresources, AquaTech Bio, Global Agri-Food Advancement Partnership, and the Food Center. So we basically developed a consortium. Food Center is really going to take care of and basically will be the commercialization arm for this whole ecosystem, growing ecosystem in Western Canada. So Food Center is established in 1997 as a development agency to provide the innovation in the agri-food sector for Saskatchewan, and over time it's grown entire Canada, and now we are basically a global footprint, helping the companies around the world in their innovation, primarily from local crop, meat utilization, plant-based foods, and ingredients. We have over 85 full-time employees dedicated to supporting the agri-food sector in Canada. So our vision is really leading the evolution of Saskatchewan's agri-food industry and to provide the leadership, expertise, and services enabling our agri-food industry to develop the market opportunities through innovative products, processing, technology, and training. And we do this by creating, connecting, collaborating, commercializing, and developing and working with the whole ecosystem in Canada. So when we look at our technical and outreach programs, the center is really the agri-food utilization, and around that we have extrusion R&D, manufacturing and incubation, product development, food safety, skills development, ingredient science and technology, the food grade crop quality program. We also have a women in agri-food entrepreneurship program, as well as the fermentation and the bioengineering, the most recent program we are currently building on. So we have 2 processing facilities. This is our Agri-Food Innovation Center, about 53,000 square feet. And this is our pilot plant, about 10,000 square feet. So the whole point about the Food Center, these certified facilities for food processing can really help the companies to produce their products at an interim level or as a small scale, like a soft launch capability. So we have CFIA inspected facilities, which we focus on meat, dairy, processed foods, honey. We have asset certification, DRC certification, organic, halal, and kosher, and all the products are FDA approved. So all the products we produce here can be sold in the Canadian and US or global marketplace. And we have diverse, flexible equipment, trained operators, and commercial manufacturing in this capability. So one of the expertise is of the The food center is the fibrated proteins with the plant-based ingredients. This is a major area that we use extrusion technology, and in the process of looking at some additional technologies in this fibration, generating this fibrous protein products into the commercialization efforts for the clients. And these products through our culinary programs can be converted into RT chicken applications like completely vegan stir fries or chicken kebabs or vegan kebabs, vegan nuggets, or like a vegan quiche type of products. Some of the technical programs in the pipeline is right now we are working on the fermentation technologies program, and here in this section we are going to be addressing conventional biomass value-driven synthetic biology type of products. We'll have the sustainable food ingredient technologies program with some new novel drying technologies, advanced processing extraction technologies, separation and clean label technologies. We also have a food grade crop quality ingredient program, primarily on the pulses, oats, barley, and flax, and sustainability on the life cycle analysis program, primarily on the regional meat crop and the plant-based food ingredients. The food crop quality program has been established by on the pulses now, thanks to the support of Saskatchewan pulse growers, but there's some interest that we are looking at the oats, barley, and the flaxseed in the future. So how did this happen? Like why the fermentation and bioengineering is quite important for Western Canada? And that's really going back to the raw materials, the overall growing agri-food industry. So in Saskatchewan, and when we look at this and entire Western Canada, we are seeing the same patterns in Manitoba and Alberta as well. There's an increasing value of co-products and co-streams coming and readily available in the market. A major canola crushing capacity, so there will be a significant amount of canola meal coming into the marketplace, almost the same amount, maybe even more in the next couple of years, currently being produced. And there's also quite a bit of pulse processing and fractionation capacity, which brings quite a bit of starches and flours and the whole type of products. So fermentation is definitely one of the processes that can address some of the needs locally as well as for export markets. So this project has been established a couple of years ago as an ecosystem development project, and to really provide the technical support the industry needs, the technical processes the industry needs, and then we can establish this lab to pilot production scale process development, process modeling, where we can take in partnership with the research, where we can work from like a 1, 2, 3 liter up to 20,000 liter fermentation and bioengineering capacity, so that we can attract the expertise in the field to Western Canada to support this developing pilot process and the scale-up facility. And the main thing is really now we're looking at basically scaffolding and looking at so many different products, from canola meals to starches to fiber to co-products, and there's so many different products in there, whether it's cellulosic or carbohydrate based or even protein based. To look at those and how can we convert to these commodity ingredient processing into more like a high value added products, and develop the collaboration, develop the partnership, bring the companies, and to develop this whole training and education background with all the partners in Western Canada. So our role as the food center is we are building a pilot plant about 8,000 square feet, not so big, but it's basically going to address our needs within a separate facility in the south side of our Agri-Food Innovation Center that will be addressing the needs from 1.5 liter up to 15,000 liter fermentation and bioengineering capacity, which will be supported with the necessary downstream equipment to refine and purify the ingredients for the commercial use. And we'll also have the partnership with the Global Agri Advancement Program at the Innovation Place that will have smaller scale systems, fermentation systems that will be partnering with GAP team as well. So the facility will be about, this is our fermentation fleet. So we'll be putting 10,000 liter, 2,000 liter, 1,000 liter at 750, and then 100 liter, and then a couple of those. And we'll have the 2 liters and the 10 liters established in the labs, some working area, and this will be the separation and the isolation process where we'll have different dryers, spray dryer, decanters, and all the systems available for the industry. So the overall goal is really to serve the industry, to act as a contract research organization and a contract manufacturing organization. So our focus will be the commercialization arm of the salt fermentation system for startups and SMEs, to lead the training and the technology transfer programs, and also get involved with the web-based and hands-on training, which we conducted 3 webinars this year for industry, institutions, private firms, and so many partners and different stakeholders got involved in these activities. So the overall scope will be primarily on the contract research and the contract manufacturing organization. Will be providing ideation, innovation, product development, and the commercialization support to the companies. And we'll also have the upstream and the downstream processing capabilities available. In terms of downstream processing, we'll have the continuous centrifugation with decanter, tricanter, disc stack systems, drying with spray and the fluid bed, cell lysing with the high shear, membrane filtration with micro ultrafiltration and nanofiltration, and in the pasteurization, dry temperature, short time jet cooking. On the drying side, we'll be also adding a microwave assisted vacuum drying, which will enable us to dry certain products less than under 40 degrees centigrade. So we'll be able to dry different products at 30, 35, 37 degrees centigrade, which will give us some different opportunities on the processing side. So the scope of the program will be, we have quite a bit of institutional knowledge on the traditional conventional fermentation, on the sourdough, tempeh, and I will go around further up on the pyramid with bacterial biomass, whether on the probiotics and the plant inoculants, mycelial biomass with texturized food ingredients with plant inoculants, value drive like bioactives, hydrolyzed proteins, reduced anti-nutritional factors, alcohols, and on the precision side, cellular agriculture and the synthetic biology, helping the industry, helping the clients to commercialize, go from 20, 30 liter up to 1,000 liter, 2,000 liter, then to 10,000. And then as we develop these products, then we can tap this into ingredient innovation, product development, or the extrusion, so that we'll basically position ourselves as a one-stop shop by adding the fermentation capability, and especially on the food side, that we can service the industry with different type of capabilities, from product development into concept development, through extrusion or manufacturing capabilities, or further modification with ingredient innovation. And the main reason for that is really, as Elaine presented so nicely, there's quite a bit of startups, a lot of groups around Canada. National Research Council, Natural Products Canada, Ontario Genomics, AgWest Bio, GAP, all these groups, they're working with different startups and trying to elevate and trying to accelerate their processes, and they need a place to go. In some cases, they have no place to go in North America. There's not enough capacity. There's not enough place to do this type of production for manufacturing and also at a large scale. So with the AFIC 2, this is our fermentation and bioengineering program at Advanced Food Ingredient Center. We'll work with the industry, but we'll be also working with all these startups very confidential way. And then they'll be coming here, producing their products, and then take it over, or we can put it in our current pipeline products, such as product development through test markets or commercialization activities. So with that, thank you very much. It's been a great session. I was really glad to be part of it, honored to be part of all the speakers. With that, we can go back to a little bit discussion and a quick panel. Phil, thank you. And the next session, we just like to go through about 10 minutes, quick panel discussion, and just to recap what we talked about and to address some of the questions we haven't. So I'd like to start just by addressing Jussi, asking him about, especially on this startup scheme, because we have quite a bit of expertise, and over the years, I mean, we are like fairly newcomers in North America, in Canada, just going through these things, and the startups just they're like flourishing. But how do you see the success of the startup percentage, like going after? Like, can you comment on that? Like, what's your overall success in Finland, in Europe? For let's say 100 startups, is 20, 25 of them they're going into like more commercialization, different levels? Can you talk about some of that, the success scheme in Europe?
Well, that's a tough one. So I don't think the European startup scene is that different, sort of compared to the US, for example, that about the survival rate. It's obviously only a small percentage survives, unfortunately, and sort of what is if I can say from sort of Finland point of view. So we have had the big problem is that attracting venture capital to Finland is, I mean, we are still considered a bit being sort of, you know, far there in the north, and people don't always consider that. That's why I think, as I mentioned, the showcases that we can show that what we can do is really critical. And regarding the European setting, so for example, this IBISPA infrastructure network where we are, so it is exactly established for that, to serve the startup companies, so that it's an easy low-cost service for them to get over the valley of death, to get the sort of product development going and helping that to happen. What then the percentage eventually will be for the survival is a very difficult one, and depends on the economic, you know, trends and so forth. But we are trying to help them.
Thank you. Going back to Bruno. Bruno, how do you see the venture capital, the overall growth at Cornell in upstate? Can you comment on that? Like, they're working with all these different groups from startups to companies. How do you see the overall interest and growth there? We know there's quite a bit of now growth in the East, primarily in New England, like similar to what has been done in California. So can you please comment on your observations?
Yeah, thank you. I think there's a big job for us as researchers and service providers to help these venture capitalist groups to understand more about what's at stake, so that they can properly evaluate the investments they're making. Because we do not want to go into a situation in which the wrong companies will be funded, which could lead to a major problem down the road, where we would have big companies failing, and that would be understood as the whole system of fermentation food production failing, or being the wrong thing to invest in. So reaching out to these groups is extremely important, and providing them with the understanding that they need to properly evaluate these companies. And when we do that, we also have to make sure we are using the language that is accessible to each one of these stakeholders, right? It doesn't help to provide the information, but they cannot be digested. We have we have been doing some of that work. I serve in advisory as a scientific advisor to investment groups with exactly that objective. But the capital exists. I think your institution, Cornell AgriTech, these institutions can be hubs for understanding. But I think my entire answer would be around making sure that we have access to these funds. I think that's something that we are doing very well. But at the same time, that we are providing an environment where the decision to invest or not, or which companies should be invested, and what kind of deals is also important, because sometimes the kind of deals that these venture capital funds are used to do not really match what the industry can deliver. For example, if they're used to software investments, right? They will not want to invest in capital assets. And we see a lot of that term being around. We want to invest in light asset companies. Well, if you are in the fermentation farming sector and you want to expand and you don't want to invest in a bioreactor and downstream processing, you don't have a business in the next 2 to 5 years because there is no capacity. So we need to show them that there is investment down the road as well. Yeah, on those areas.
Thank you, Bruno. So going to Elaine, Elaine, now after President Biden's announcement, things changed a little bit. And what do you think is going to be the overall impact to Canada? Do you think that you expect a little bit more funding and more initiative from Ottawa? More direction?
That would be awesome. I don't know. That's the million or billion dollar question. But I think there's, that just, I think, adds further incentive, or adds further like proof, like, this is, the way that the world is going. And there's really a great opportunity for, the US, Canada, and like all the countries that we've represented here or other or elsewhere. So yeah, I would hope so. I think we've got a lot of the pieces of the secret sauce up here. So I think it's a good opportunity for many, many reasons, both for sustainability or economic or otherwise.
Okay, thank you. Phil, I think I'd like to leave you the last words just to conclude and some of the takes from the session. Can you go through with some of your insights and your thoughts by the end of the session?
Well, yes, happy to, Mehmet. The technical session did a great job of really painting the incredible diversity globally for fermentation. It's just coming fast and furious. I'd really like to see some transformative technology. Protein has taken kind of a front seat for a lot of the things over the past couple of years. Our company is an example of that. But the thing that was interesting to me when I updated the one slide in my deck to go back to the Planetary Boundaries model from the Stockholm Institute is that from nothing last year, they finally have been able to quantify the estimated global impact of materials like plastics. And it's gone from essentially off the radar to completely on fire in terms of risk. And to me, that's a huge opportunity and a huge challenge for all of us who operate in this space. The unique kind of materials that has already been shown to be possible with fermentation is got to rise to this challenge. We have got to come up with better materials that can be more sustainable, more biodegradable, less environmentally impactful. And I see that as a huge opportunity above and beyond the nourishing the planet. That's not going to go away. Okay, I mean it's not going to go away. So all the things about precision fermentation or valorization of these major agricultural feedstocks, cell culture, cell-based meats in particular, none of that is going to go away. But now it's like, wow, what could fermentation do to this other major risk factor? And I think the sobering thing about the Planetary Boundaries model is that the team of scientists who have been trying to communicate those risks to all of us is that we don't have a lot of time. You know, maybe a decade, okay, maybe a decade. And so a lot of stuff has got to happen pretty quickly. And I would hope that you would see this as a huge opportunity for good. So that's one thing. The other is the adjacency of technologies is so important, and as we get ready to launch into the in-person and virtual sustainable protein forum in Chicago next week, we have some phenomenal speakers who have spent their whole lives trying to understand the interaction of proteins and other materials, whether it's in food systems or in model systems. So hydrocolloids, lipids in particular. You know, protein itself is not going to be a solution, and it's the way that those proteins will interact to positively impact texture and appearance and flavor and aroma will become very important. And so the forum has got a wonderful list of technical sessions and world-leading speakers who could really, you know, provide an incredible context for the audience. So I really encourage folks to try to attend, ideally in person, but if they can't attend in person for whatever reason, that there's a virtual attendance option as well. I think you'll be amazed at how the technology in a number of areas continues to just grow at an amazing pace, whether it's processing technologies or basic protein and other biomaterial science, formulation, et cetera, all with an eye towards how do we do things from a sustainability perspective. So for me, Mehmet, I keep coming back to this model for planetary boundaries. I know it's simple. There are lots of you know, interactions there that become very important, but at a top level, we have serious challenges that we all have to rise up and meet, and we don't have much time to be successful in solving those problems. So look forward to the forum to really foster new ideas and provide a catalyst to be change for good. So look forward to seeing people virtually or hopefully in person in Chicago.
Yeah. Thank you, Phil, and thank you all our speakers, Jussi, Bruno, and Elaine, and thank you to AOCS staff, scenes taking care of us. It's been such a pleasure working and presenting this session. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you all.